local, late-breaking. This is Action News with Nancy Osborne, Graciela Moreno, Dan Taylor Sports, and AccuWeather with Angelo Stallings. From Central California's news leader, this is Action News live at 5.
A first-of-its-kind study reveals farm workers face serious health risks. Nearly 1,000 California farm workers were interviewed, examined, and given blood tests to determine their well-being. Researchers with the California Endowment found that 1 out of 3 of the men had never seen a doctor. Half had never been to a dentist. About 1/3 are considered obese, and many have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or were anemic. Researchers believe these illnesses are the result of poor health care and malnutrition.
The fact that young folks in the peak of their physical, condition, so to speak, have such poor health status. That was really a shock.
The California Endowment is forming a task force to spend the next 4 months trying to come up with a solution. Among the ideas, better rural clinics and more medical insurance.
You're watching KMPH Fox 26. And now, the Valley's only primetime newscast. This is the KMPH 10 o'clock news.
Well, a new state report just released says that California farm workers are suffering in silence. The study was done by a nonprofit group in Davis, California, and the goal was to find out how many farm workers are subject to chronic disease. The study says the risk factors for chronic disease is unusually high for a group that is mostly comprised of young men who would normally otherwise be in peak physical condition. 652 farm workers were actually given physicals, and the risk factors are quite stunning. Heart disease, stroke, gallbladder problems, diabetes, or obesity. Also, nearly 70% of those who took part in that survey have no health insurance of any kind to speak of. The survey was funded by the California Endowment.
You're watching KGPE, Fresno, Visalia, Merced. Now, News 47 for the Central Valley. News 47 at 6.
They are key players in the Valley's main industry, agriculture.
And now a comprehensive study released brings to light some very startling details about farm workers. A report from the California Endowment shows that many of the people it interviewed had never been to a doctor, and physical tests taken during the interview process by study organizers found that some of the farm workers have life-threatening illnesses.
The blood tests are covering such illnesses as anemia, problems with cholesterol, diabetes, which is, has an extraordinarily high prevalence among Latinos, especially Mexicans. I think 1 out of every 10 people is at risk to suffer either type 1 or type 2, which is age onset. They call it old age diabetes.
Okay.
Some more highlights, or better yet, lowlights from the California Endowment study. Nearly 1 in 5 men questioned had at least 2 of 3 risk factors for chronic diseases like high blood pressure, and a majority lacked any form of health insurance.
From KMBC 9 News, Kansas City's news leader.
First-of-its-kind study shows that farm workers face serious health risks. Nearly 1,000 California farm workers were interviewed and given blood tests to determine their well-being. Researchers discovered that 1 out of every 3 farm workers had never seen a doctor. Half had never been to a dentist. And about 1/3 are considered obese, and many have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or are anemic. Researchers believe these illnesses are the result of poor health care and malnutrition.
Young folks in the peak of their physical, condition, so to speak, have such poor health status. That was really a shock.
Now, experts suggest that better clinics with better access to farm workers would help them face the health problems that they face.
Now, for all of Northern California, this is KOVR 13 News at 6.
Still to come now at 6. Long hours, low pay, sometimes no health insurance. A new survey suggests all that hard work may be catching up with area farm workers. Diana Penna with the surprising results next. While Americans get ready to celebrate Thanksgiving, a new study shows farm workers here in the Central Valley are suffering in silence. suffering from a myriad of health problems as well as lack of medical care. Health editor Diana Penna joins us now to tell us about this unprecedented report.
Really is an unbelievable story. Thanks so much, Jen. This is the first time in the history of the state that a survey has actually been backed up by thorough medical checks, including blood tests. Now, among the study's most startling findings were that young farm workers between the ages of 20 and 34 are more than twice as likely to have high blood pressure as other U.S. adults. And it gets even worse.
This is the fabric of who we are in California. As the breadbasket of the world, over half of the fruits and vegetables that are produced in this country come from California, predominantly San Joaquin Valley. Farm workers are the hardest working, most productive segment of our society, I believe, that's the least paid and suffer in silence.
A new study funded by the California Endowment has turned up some serious health problems facing California farm workers.
We have, for the first time, not only physical examinations and survey interviews with people, but we actually have blood draws to confirm the information.
Researchers commissioned from UC Davis found that more than a third of male agricultural workers have never seen a doctor. Half have never been to the dentist.
We found, for example, that strikingly in young men, these are predominantly young men, ages between 18 and 44, who appear to be in physical health, but actually show alarming rates of hypertension, alarming rates of diabetes, and poor nutrition. Obesity, surprisingly enough, ironically enough, the people who produce the greatest abundance of food would also be suffering from malnutrition.
Nearly 70% of the people who participated in the study did not even have health insurance, and they earned, on average, between $7,000 and $8,000 a year. Tonight on the 10 o'clock news, What's Next? We'll tell you how the Social Cause Health Agency plans to tackle this problem. That's only on our news next at 10 o'clock.
Good, but at least someone is planning to do something.
Do something,
Good.
exactly.
All right, Diana, thanks.
Lo que estamos haciendo, ¿Cómo están pagando ahora? ¿A cómo lo hay? ¿Cómo lo están pagando? ¿Cómo están pagando? 22. ¿Y qué? ¿Sí sale? Sí. ¿Sí? Más o menos. Más o menos. Está la feria. Mira, aquí está. Y es rápido, rápido. ¿Cómo? Movimiento en la mano, digo. Pues aquí tengo que pegarle duro, porque si no me sale. Pues ya, mero, ya.
¿Ustedes van a México de vez en cuando para atención médica?
No. No.
Ni a visitar a la familia siquiera.
No.
Tenemos muchos años que no vamos a México.
Ok. Señor, ¿cuándo fue su última consulta con un médico o centro de salud o clínica?
¿Cuándo fue? ¿Cuándo fue cuando se vino Vicente? Tengo más de como 2 años.
¿Más de 2 años?
Más, sí, yo pienso que más de 2 años.
Okay.
¿Ya que es su presión?
No exactamente.
Ok. Ok. No duele. Esto se debe hacer con un médico o alguien de oficina para estar ciertos de que su presión está bien, porque muchas de las veces es posible de que pueda haber alta presión de sangre y la persona no se da cuenta. Y muchas veces la persona no tiene ningún tipo de síntoma tampoco. Solo que aunque usted se siente bien, es necesario de que se haga el examen. ¿Ok?
No.
No, ok. Ok, aquí tiene una vena muy buena. Entonces, cierto que no va a haber problemas. Aquí un piquetito. Ciertas personas en veces se sienten un poquito débil o poquitos mareados, esto reacción es normal. Suelte la mano. La semana que viene, cuando venga, le tendremos los análisis.
One of the major aspects of our study is that the interviews are at their homes for several reasons. One is just so that by going to dwellings, you're going to get the broadest or the greatest representation as opposed to just going to workplaces or just going to places where they get their health care, because you're going to leave out the people who aren't currently working or can't get health care. So, but also just in terms of really getting a sense of who they are and being where they're comfortable and a sense of their culture. You just learn a lot by walking in, sitting down, and just chatting for a couple hours. And a lot of times it ends up that. It starts out the more formal interview. But by the end, you're talking about all kinds of things, and you're invited to a family wedding, and there's just, you gain so much more by being there in their home, meeting their family. Their spouse often chimes in with all, she's the one who remembers the doctor's appointments and when they last had a cough and when, those types of things. So,
overall is looking at some particularly interesting health issues. We do a blood test and a urine test as part of 2 components with respect to our physical exam. The blood tests are covering such illnesses as anemia, problems with cholesterol, diabetes, which is, has an extraordinarily high prevalence among Latinos, especially Mexicans. I think 1 out of every 10 people is at risk to suffer either type 1 or type 2, which is age onset. They call it old age diabetes, and that's in growing numbers. We're kind of correlating this physical exam. We've added a questionnaire, which we have 2 questionnaires. We do a questionnaire, about a 90-minute survey in the household of the selected individual, where we get into an in-depth profile of their use of health services, their health conditions over the past year, illnesses that they may have had that have been identified by a doctor, work history, work health and safety issues. And then we add on a high-risk questionnaire, as we call it, that addresses high-risk social behaviors. And we felt that this would be better done in the clinic rather than the home, because it touches on some issues such as domestic violence, use of alcohol, drugs, sexual history, themes that are very sensitive to people and that may be difficult to get at this community by doing it in the house, whether you're around maybe, you know, friends or family, or they're living with other guys and they're not as apt to want to come forward and talk about these things. What we found is when we do this in the clinic, people by and large have been quite open and forthcoming with us.